my pleasure. Actually, I don't know if I have to be such high or I can step a bit down, let's say. But first of all, thanks for the introduction. I'm really flattered, but by far it's not only my, going only with my contribution. We were a lot of guys few guys starting this conference, and already for 9 years it's happening mostly because of you. It's not because of us who are organizing it only, it's because of you, because of the ideas, because of everything which is happening around. And I'll take a topic from the opening keynote, where this event is about innovation, about technologies, about automation, about all this stuff, about progress. 9 years ago, when we started this conference, technology landscape or state of mind was one thing. Nowadays, if you all these years struggle what happened around, it's totally different thing. So technology is changing, I hope, and I believe it's changing for good. But there are some things which didn't change much during all these years. Some things which are mostly inside us, it's related with us as people, as human beings, as part of the society, part of organizations, part of everything we do around as people. So today, with Nikos, we have the pleasure to talk about organizational politics, the good, the bad for the politics, and of course the dark side. Okay, politics, politics are all around us. Usually we associate this term, this word, with something bad. Whenever you get something like a phrase on you, something like you are too political, usually you're not taking it as a compliment, right? It's a bit of bad smells inside it. But actually, politics is for everything around us, everything which is happening. It's about power, it's about authority, it's how stuff works day to day. It's by far not only this narrow context of the ugly side we know from our day-to-day life, like gossiping, like backstabbing, all the stuff we know from the ugly side. By far it's not. Same with the scholars nowadays. This definition, which at some point of time at the time took really into major place in the researches in the area, that politics is about self-interest and stuff which is done more or less not in alignment with organizational goals, but only for self-interest, is already by far in the past, and it's much more wide scope behind politics. That's what we will talk about today. And of course, we will talk about much more about our experiences, things we will be able to share from these experiences, and I hope we will provoke you also to come into this conversation and share experiences as questions. So talking about a wider definition of politics, politics is practically the one which I like, which is generalizing my point of view on politics, is that it's nothing more, nothing less than a set of influence tactics in order to improve personal organizational interest. That's about politics. And you can, I can ask you now, for example, a question. Do you think that in your organization now you have to play politics in order to progress? Do you think? Do you have to play politics in order to progress? What do you think about it? You think? Just a few. It's interesting. Good. I hope during the session you get also different perspectives on this, but just remembering a fact from a research 2012 in US, they did a countrywide research on this topic, and it turned out that 55% from the Americans actually admitted that they have to play some kind of politics in order to progress. 2016, they repeated this research. Can you imagine what was the result? 72. Now, if they do it now with the autocratic kind of management style going around in the US, And by the way, the autocratic way of, leading or managing usually is increasing politics. That's what the score says. Most probably it will be higher, yes. But it's not always for bad. It's not always for bad. It's also for good. Politics are not a bad thing, as is the basic perception we usually get to when we're talking about organizational politics. Think about it. Everything in our workplace is more or less is driven by politics, right? So, for example, in my experience as a manager, I had a lot of cases like, for example, a new member in a team. And this new member in a team, due to some reason, is not fitting into the team, not performing well, in some cases even poisoning the team. What I've seen in several situations is that the team, especially if the team is a working team, is forming kind of a coalition, putting this colleague with the side, and usually sending a messenger to the formal leader, hey, what are you doing? Take some action, do something. These are politics. They're good, bad. These are politics, and I wouldn't say it's bad. At the end, it's for good. It's for good of the team, it's for good of the organization. If the politics are good or bad, actually depends on us. How we played it, how we participate into it. What is our intention? If we can keep ourselves as it is inside the politics, not an issue. We just have to be aware of it. If you stick to your ethic values, if you are moral, you don't need to go to cross these things, just to be part of it. Politics are all around. And I just, another example from my experience as mentor and coach and also a manager. I've had many sessions with different colleagues talking about cases like, okay, I'm fighting with some colleague of mine. What to do? To provide feedback? To go to his manager? What? To talk with his or her colleagues, friends? What to do? All the scenarios, in one or another way, they are politics. We're doing something to influence the things in our interest and in the good case, in the interest of the organization. Yes, it's tricky. But some of the people went to provide direct feedback. It didn't work. So they then decided to step up. But stepping up means, okay, you're playing politics. What to do? This is life. So I hope you reconsider now your thinking about playing politics. I'll ask you again the question at the end of the session. So that's about this perspective. Even more, worldwide. Imagine what it would be without, having some great politicians like Martin Luther King or Dalai Lama or, such kinds of influencers, which what they did practically. They knew the fears, they knew the desires of the people, of the society. They managed to influence the nations to do big sacrifices in order to improve their nation, in order to lift their nation. Isn't it a politic game in a big scale? Isn't it positive? Who will challenge the moral of these guys? These are the moral leaders of our world, will be. So it's not only a bad game. Although just in a minute, Nikos will talk about even the darker side, but I'm still on the bright side. Again, how to play the game? If to play the game, from my side, what I would advise you, yes, you don't have a choice. You have to play the game of politics. How to play? It's your choice. My only advice I would provide to you is first, take the time and do understand your informal network, the guys around, the system around, not the formal one, not the org chart, not the labels and titles, but how stuff works. By the way, it's an interesting website. I don't know if you know it, how stuff works. I know it probably since 10 years. And I'm usually using it for mechanical stuff to check how this engine is working, how this. Yesterday I checked, in howstuffworks.com, you can ask about politics. They have answer also about it, how politics work. Never mind. So, about understanding the informal network. You have to understand the mechanism around you, how it works. Which are the informal connections, which is the way decisions really are taken, and then to find your way to plug in a way, to be part of this environment, to build your network and utilize it in order to progress in the direction you want to progress. This is the game. This is the life. This is the meaning of the workplaces around. Some guys are saying this is management. Some guys are saying management and politics is practically synonyms. Okay. Something to mention, which this morning it just appeared in my mind when I was thinking about examples for great politicians. And this morning I had a kind of a great idea. It was well illustrated in front of me. The greatest politician I know, practically is at home. He's 3 years old. And by far, he's not on the bedside yet. But just imagine, I have to join a remote meeting, or I have an urgent call to do. He knows the exact moment, few seconds before, he's just sticking to me. Grabbing all the attention he can grab out of me. Why? Because he knows there will be something positive as outcome out of it. Being it 5 minutes baby TV, chocolate, whatever, unless his mother is around and we have some, decrease in the political situation in our family organization. Applying some rules of the game. Okay, that's about the positive side. What about the other side, before going to the darkness? The other side, you have met for sure. This is the bad side of politics, the most popular one. Gossiping, backstabbing, manipulative behaviors, and so on and so forth. I'll give you a few examples only, and I'm sure that you'll be able to correlate it to some situations in your organization. About gossiping, for sure in your organization you have some masters of gossips, right? You're not sure. If you're not sure, you have now a task for when you are back in your organizations. Please make the needful. Find out who are these masters of gossips. It's life-saving or career-saving for you. And just take care what exactly you're discussing with these guys. It's important. It's funny, but it's also important. What about credit thieves? You have met them? The ones who are just taking the credit for the big project you have done your 24/7 periods so far, and they're just coming, taking the credit. Usually some guys who are urging to progress in their career in an easy way. By the way, I had such experience. Some of you probably also had such an experience. Somewhere in the beginning of my software engineering career, I was working really enthusiastic and hard on a project, quite innovative project, with much more experienced guy. Of course, I was the one doing all the coding and this and that. The guy was mostly idea generator, but still, I was thankful for having him having the idea and having the chance to do this. What happened at the end? I trusted fully the guy to publish the results of what we have done. At the end, he published something like a dozen of in dozen of different forums and channels, and he barely mentioned myself in one of them. Barely. One small guy did something. And then I felt that, what the fuck? Really? This was my breakthrough moment in terms of credit thieves. Since that moment, I know, whenever you do something, especially whenever you do something significant, you feel it's significant, blow the trumpet of your achievements. Don't wait someone else to do it, to notice, to this, to that. It's you. If you are not blowing the trumpet for your achievement, don't expect someone else to do it. Yes, you can call it politics, but that's the way of life. What to do? And last example, last politician type, which lately I love it. And as higher I was going in the management here, more often I have met it. These are the advisors. I don't know how many of you have met this role, but in companies, especially in a bit bigger companies, you always have advisors. As upper you're going, you have more and more advisors. These guys are usually with not really defined position in the organization, or at all not defined, but they have the ability to provide you with really powerful advices. My advice to you is be careful with advisors. Don't neglect them. Don't push them aside. Be careful. Just listen, think, try to find out where the advisor is getting his power from. Usually these are instruments of owners, founders, the upper levels of management, whatever. But this is the persona which is there. It's, it's something existing. It's something tangible. So pay attention on it. Okay, the bad side of politics, or really political intense organizations, usually are leading to bad outcomes for the organizations. Because if the organization is dealing too much with politics, especially if the balance is not well maintained between the bad side and the good side, there are a lot of researchers saying that, in such an environment, it's most likely that, the voices of, with ideas of the employees will be muted, because probably it won't be safe to talk much or at all. It's also, about engagement and performance. Usually it's lowered because of the high level of politics. And, the result of all this intense political environment very often goes to detaching the people from their workplace, physically and mentally. It's something where they don't want really to be, but they have to be due to one other reason. One thing. Or the other thing is they're simply too attached to the political games in order to attach to the working side of the story, let's say. And yes, it's leading to restricting the information share between the people. It's leading to a situation where learning is practically stopped or slowed down the learning process. Why? Because the information is not shared. In such environments, we are playing games. We have to keep the information for us to be more powerful, more this, more that. So whenever you smell such an environment, first think if you would like to adapt and play the game there, or just change the game field, which I would advise you in most of the cases to do. And yes, at the end, it's about trust. In such an environment, there is no trust. Trust is simply gone. But that's not all at all. I mentioned that there is darker side. It's not only the bad side. And now Nikos is coming with the darker side.
Okay, thank you. Can I change this?
It's working?
Yeah,
Yes,
it is.
it's working.
Okay, good morning. When Georgi asked me to participate, I didn't know what the subject was. And then he says politics. And of course, if you live long enough or you work long enough, you are into politics. The point is, what do you understand out of this? So I'm going to take you into an interesting path. Maybe I can help a little bit. In my last, one of the best tools that I use is neuroscience. I have a specialization in there. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit more of information on that part. There you go. In the years that I worked, and that's about 40 years, I've encountered a lot of different things in organizations. My field is organizational psychology. One of the most interesting people in those organizations are the ones that we call assholes, not because we don't like them, but just because they are. That's their role. Their role is to give us a hard time and to see how they fit in the organization. So I have this matrix where I can point out to a few things. For example, I don't know if does this work? No. Anyway, you can see if you take the behavior, the performance behavior, and the congruent behavior, in other words, how they adjust to come closer. In the high performance behavior, we have the competent assholes. So there are some people who are really competent. They are difficult, very difficult, but then that's where the politics is. You need to adjust to understand what they're doing, what the problem is. And I'll come back to this. Neuroscience has made a lot of strides into it. And then we have the incompetent assholes. These are very easy to identify and then easy to fire, of course. Okay? But they basically there. We have the incompetent nice guys, and a lot of times it takes us a long time before we fire them because they're nice. You know, you have this plan, and this guy comes into your office, and you say, John, I want to talk to you about something, and he's really so nice that you say to yourself, okay, let's do it another time. You really hesitate to fire these people. And then you have the competent nice guys and outstanding nice guys. These are the people that you actually want to keep around you. But the organization basically is not about anything else but a culture. The culture, we can define culture in many ways, and what Georgi said actually is the way we operate or the way we do it here. That's basically what we do. But the idea here is you have to look in a culture, in your culture, and think, how do we hire people, how we promote people, and how do we fire people? These are the three things that will give you an idea of what the culture is all about and how these people actually fare. The dark side is a little bit further than that. So there are a lot of different names and different epithets. Three of those are basically outstanding, and we call them the dark triad. And I put some pictures in there because I think you probably recognize these people, and also the movies. The number one architect of the dark side is the narcissist. The narcissist is a person who actually feels both sides. He feels that he's or she is grandiose, meaning that I'm much better, allow me to introduce myself. Please keep me up on your state of mind. I'm the one who does everything. And some people who are grandiose and narcissist, actually I used to work for one at Vodafone in Greece. You live very well around there. I'm not sure about the performance, but you live very well. You got everything. You got the best computers, you got the best offices, you got really good stuff to eat, and so forth and so on. These people are really give you a lot of things because they want you to admire them. So it's a give and take situation. It's not because they're nice enough. They can be nice, but it's because they crave actually your admiration. By getting your admiration, they have also control over you, so you can do whatever you want. If you have a time, or whenever you have a time, it will take you only about an hour to read it. It's a small book called The Mafia Manager. And in the book, you're going to see a lot of these people, the narcissists. And the narcissists are the ones who actually will bring you up a level. Say it's a car, it's a promotion, it's a lot of money, it's the bonus scheme, whatever it is, they bring you up so high that you don't feel secure to leave the company because you're not going to get this elsewhere. So a narcissist is a very good person who gives you a lot of things because he or she wants to get more from you. The other side, of course, is the insecurity behind it. That's why they hide a lot of things. So a narcissist is the first and the most important of the triad. The second one is a psychopath. And more or less, in psychology, we know that we all have a certain degree of psychopathy. We all are psychopaths here. We just don't know it until it comes out, or we don't know it until we really get pressured. That's when it comes out to it. A psychopath is someone who is actually disturbed by anything that outside of his or her framework. They have a plan. They have an idea. They have a picture. If you don't fit in that picture, they go on the other side, of the dark side. So a psychopath is someone who is really going to control you over a framework. They put you in and close you in there, and they say, the moment you step out, you're going to have a problem with me. Okay? So that's basically the idea of their management or leadership or communication. And the third one is the Machiavellianism is called, but Machiavelli style is the one who actually lives and works on the other side. So they say one thing, they probably mean something else, but in the end, they have something third in their mind. Normally, these people work on a long-term basis. So they do something today, or they tell you something today, and they have a long-term process to expect something in a long time. So they are really good at planning. They're really good at waiting. They have a lot of patience. They don't react, but they do have a lot of things to do. And of course, I'm sure you all have seen the series there with Mr. President of the United States, who's done a lot of work. It took several, actually, seasons before you understood that the guy is a Machiavelli. Now, what do all these people have in common? And of course, Georgi said something to that effect. I'll emphasize that. These people, what the people have in common, actually, if I can get this to work, there it is. All these people have in common, they have created and they use what we call a shadow organization. In reality, this exists. And I can tell you the good side and the bad side. I can tell you the good side that I favored, and there's also a bad side, that dark side. The good side is, for example, if you have a set of secretaries or administrative staff in your company, these people actually are connected in a different way, on a different basis. If I wanted to get something done, and I had from a certain department a denial, then I would get my secretary to talk to his secretary, and she, in some way, will basically convince him at something that I couldn't convince him. And that's the director of so-and-so. And so you use this shadow organization to actually get things done, but this dark triad people, they can actually develop the network. They don't just simply use it. We use it. And there's another good example is when you have a competition. I used to work for Vodafone. We had 3 operators, and we needed something. I would call one of the dealers, one of the shops, the dealers. And I knew the dealer was working with somebody else as well. So I get the information from the dealers for my benefit and use that as well. So shadow organization is actually something that we use, and in all this, you have to consider that we do this for adaptation. Our brain needs to adapt. Our brain actually has only one reason to exist, and that is to keep us alive. So it's a survival issue. I don't necessarily find an excuse for all these things these people are doing, but remember, deep down inside is their brain that works in that direction. It's not just because they get up one morning or there's a DNA issue or there is something issue. There's no issue, just their survival issue. They feel that that's how they're going to survive the whole situation. That's why in the adaptive leadership that when we talk about that, everywhere in the companies or in the universities, we discuss a phenomenon that's called go on the balcony. Remember in the old days, the politicians used to go out on the balcony with a huge crowd and promise things. That's how politics used to be. Now, of course, this thing changed. But going out on the balcony in terms of communicating with your organizations, it's now more important to realize that these people can actually influence the organization one way or another, depending what the dark triad is all about. So this is what I wanted to show you. Now, very quickly, their brain actually, and our brain, your brain and my brain, have a lot of different chemicals. If you want to actually identify these people, you have to remember that the chemicals, we have about 50 chemicals, 50 hormones. And these chemicals, especially these 2, create what we call a continuum. When these things are in balance, nobody needs to go on the dark side. Nevertheless, When one of these things goes down, then we have a need for a certain part, and then we go on the dark side. And we all have a dark side. All of you have a dark side. It's not necessarily a negative side, but it's a dark side. And the dark side is what you actually do now is not necessarily why you're doing it. Let me give you an example. When I was speaking with our lovely lady, where is she, the one who introduced us here? There she is, sorry. She asked me, and I told her about playing football, and says, where are you? She was very surprised, and I said, because my dark side was, I'm going to play football until I get my tuition paid. So it's not what you do now, is maybe something you don't know, but there's always a dark side in what we do, a positive part of the dark side, and all you have to do is, if you work in an organization, you have to think behind what you really do. And of course, I was very glad to hear today there is a toilet, actually, that can give us a lot of information. So I was delighted, and I wanted to connect this with what we're doing now. Finally, I just want to pass the button back to Georgi by saying that the reason we humans have developed in such a way is because we demand from each other to have a clear communication and develop what we call a cumulative culture, meaning that we learn and we put whatever we learn on the top of what we already know. Cumulative culture is not feasible, is not possible in other species. They also do have a brain, some of them bigger than ours. That doesn't mean they can arrive at the point where we are, and this is also a question mark in my mind coming from software myself, if we ever can get cumulative knowledge into the AI. And with this, I will pass it back to my friend Georgi. Thank you.
Okay. So, back to the bright side, huh? Okay, so I would like to share with you something in connection with the cultural topic which Nikos started, and this is based on, yep, it's almost working. No. Huh? Now it's working. Okay. So what I did a few months ago, I did a research, as some of you know, I hope, or I believe, among the ICT industry in Bulgaria. More than 200 colleagues took part into it, filled in this long questionnaire there. And some outcomes become, obvious as when I was analyzing the results. First of all, about the overall frame of the research, the good thing is that few questions popped up out of the data. First of all, most of the colleagues who filled in the survey for the research, they are working in their current working places for more than 2 years. It's a question towards this perception of the market that we're changing our job, jobs quite often. Seems like it's a questionable topic. Another thing to mention is that in terms of age, obviously we're young. Most of the participants are between 20 and 40. So there is great potential in this industry. We know it, but it's just confirmed by numbers. I'll go a bit, briefly to the results in order to open up a bit space for a few questions at the end of the session. But if you're interested, you have more questions about the research itself, I've recently posted an article with all the data, and I'm available around so we can discuss it as much as you want. The highlights out of the research I've done is that, first of all, it was proven fully that transformational leadership is minimizing politics. So if the organizations are in a situation in which they would need to minimize politics, the leaders have to focus on transformational behaviors, on the inspirational, motivating part, identifying the tangible direction, the future, all this stuff. Second of all, it was proven that for companies, small to mid-size, up to 500 guys to be exact in the numbers, the research proved that the work engagement suffers from organizational politics. So organizational politics have negative impact on work engagement in small to mid-sized companies. For the big companies, there is no confirmation for this thesis, so research can continue. And last but not least, which was interesting out of the research, that out of a sudden, for surprising me a bit, transactional and transformational leadership, they were working in one and the same direction. So my assumption was that transactional leadership will have a negative correlation with politics and engagement and stuff like this. Command and control patterns, all the stuff. It didn't prove it this way, even the opposite. So transactional management was positively related with decreasing organizational politics, as well, as increasing the engagement of the colleagues. This means, and by the way, this is lately a direction in the academic world as researchers, that probably a combined approach towards leadership, transactional plus transformational, makes sense. Probably this is one of the good ways to go, because there are definitely situations in which transactional is more meaningful to be used, Command, control, do this, do that. In other situations, we need more motivation, more inspiration, more transformational approach. But that was proven out of this research for our sector in Bulgaria. And again, as Nikos mentioned, it's cultural specific. There are differences from culture to culture. For sure, if I do the same research in different culture, even if it's the same industry, the results will be different. So if you haven't checked the Hofstede researches and the results, there is Hofstede Insights website. Check it. It's really helpful, especially when you are working in cross-cultural environments, because there you can compare in 6 dimensions how cultures differ. And some of these dimensions are exactly the leadership and how the stuff works there. Okay, with this, and we have only 2-3 minutes, I'm opening up for questions. And we'll be pleased with Nikos to try at least answering the questions. Questions? Mike, you have or? We have. Good.
Hello. Thank you for the lecture. I have a question about the component ASOs seen in the presentation. My question is...
This is always the catching part. I don't know how it
Yeah,
works.
I know. My question is, how much time should we give them to try to persuade them to be more nice guys, and when we should just give up?
Yeah, that's a good question. It all depends on your dark side. If you're a narcissist, it takes you longer. If you're a Machiavelli, it takes you in different ways. It all depends on who you are. We don't have a number. But the idea here is to identify these people. Once you identify, you may get them into a performance people because they want to be assholes mostly because they want to get your attention, the attention of the manager a lot of times. Or they're afraid of something, one or the other.
Okay. Other question?
Hello. Hello, thank you for the lecture. I have a question that was about more of mixing the politics with the policies that the company is actually executing. How are the politics that are usually going unnoticed and underground, the shadow organization, actually mixing with implementing actual policies that are visible for everyone, that are executed by everyone, so that politics actually drive the company forward and do not hold it back. Because in my opinion, this is actually what politics are for, to direct change in moving forward.
Yep. Yep.
It's no good question. It's a good topic for the next session, probably next year. It's quite big. Of course, it depends. Depends on the culture a lot. You know, different cultures have a different disposition towards rules and how how they're reacting according to the rules. For example, Balkans, we like to go a bit around the rules. There are other cultures which are strict to the rules. So there are different perceptions, different directions in order to analyze it. One context is definitely the cultural one, how principles and rules in the organization work against or along with the politics. But you are right. In principle, yes, the rules in the organization, the transparency, all these are the things which aim to bring everything on the bright side. To have transparent information, to have knowledge share among everyone, learning curve, to be speeded up through this way, and this and that and that and that. But nevertheless, you have also the shadow system, the politics, which yes, in good organization, in big part of them, they're working along with the basic principles, values of the organization. But you always have some part there which is not only bright. It's bad or even dark. It just matter how the matter is, and the topic is, and that's the challenge for the good leaders, how to minimize it, how to balance it better. Is it only through principles, rules, policies in the organization? Depends on the culture of the company, of the nation, of the culture of the country you are in. Depends on many things. There are different ways also. The positive leadership, the transformational leadership, in many cases is helping, to influence the environment towards being more, on the bright side, and so on and so forth. But again, it's good topic for at least one more session.
Let me help a little bit with the example of what you just said. At Vodafone in Athens, I was HR director, and I had a guy who was the health and safety officer. The whole HR, we were going through the ISO at the time, that's 1996. And the whole HR department, training, health and safety, compensation benefits, all the departments, totally, we're supposed to have 4 procedures, 4. He had, for health and safety, when he came to my office, he had 32. He knew about the 4, but he came with 32. You understand how he mixes now the policy and the politics. He wanted to maintain control. He was a controlling freak, maintain control. So he put so many procedures to control the area. And underneath everything was safety. You understand? This is how we mix, or they mix, politics and policies.
Okay, last one, because we're out of time. And then outside we can continue with as many questions as you have.
Oh. Thank you for the lecture. I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give the competent, nice guys to become brilliant, and how to handle the incompetent and competent assholes?
The only advice I always give, and this is serious, is to look at your own way. Don't look around. Just focus on your own progress, your own career. Don't allow anything or anybody to dissuade you, because it's very confusing to see all these people, identify these people, and you're in there. All you have to do is keep moving toward.
And just a small comment from my side. Just try to be aware of what's going on around. Play smart. And do your best to be on the bright side. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.